You mute yourself now. Yeah.
View share screen. Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry. Yeah. Did you just request it? Is it advanced sharing options? Multiple participants. There you go. There you go. You're up. Yeah, you're up. There we go.
Drag it to the bottom. I think you've got to drag it around. You do more.
Okay. Right, let's get going then. Good evening, all. Thank you very much for making the effort to turn up and come and have a look at a bit of a briefing. There's obviously some complete and utter novices in the room. There's some very experienced race officers in the room. So forgive me, we'll go over a reasonable bit of basics as well as some in detail. So obviously this is following on from the real successful adult sailing training we've been doing every Thursday night through the winter, which Harry and Scott and Tolga have been putting together. It's been brilliant, and I think hopefully has given some of our more inexperienced adults insight into what sailing is all about. So, so this is obviously a little bit more potentially in depth, and we'll try and go through what being a race officer at Thorpe Bay, or anywhere really, it's all about, but particularly sector here. So we'll go through things like what you'll need to know. We'll talk about the fleets, how to set a course, setting the start line, all the class flags. We will have a quick run through the sailing instructions. So I've got copies of it for everybody. The start sequence, those three ugly words, OCS, on course side. In other words, if you're over the line, and how we deal with that. Recording the times, shortening the course, and of course finishing the race. And then of course what can possibly go wrong, because it does. You can mess up the countdown. There's no wind. The wind's changed direction on you. The wind changes halfway through the race, as it did last Sunday. Or the wind dies completely during the race. So what do you do in those situations? So we'll start with what you need to know. Obviously, to go and volunteer to be a race officer, it is useful that you have a good understanding of a race course and what we're doing, wind direction, tide, and what it all does. As an assistant race officer, you don't need to know that. And the assistant race officer, you can come out and learn all that quite easily. Obviously, you need to know the knowledge of the fleets and the start sequence and learn a few flags. Pretty straightforward. So what's our objective as a race officer? Well, for me, it's to set the best possible course that we can to give our sailors a good and fair race. And that's not just, you know, I have heard it said, oh, it's only a run race. They should do it from the shore box. I can't be asked to committee though. I think it's a real shame, because when we're all out sailing, and we're on that start line. We want that start line to be true. We want that beat to be good. We want that run to be dead downwind, and or that reach to be fair. And it's really important that when our turn is to be a race officer or assistant race, that we try and give that scenario to the people out sailing. So I know I'd like it when I go out racing, and I'm sure most of you guys do as well. So the fleets, just a quick run through then our main fleets at Thorpe Bay. So you've got the first fleet off is the Windward Lured fleet. Generally speaking, they are the fast cats. We also have the Musto skiffs, and also the Shearwater and the Shadow will fall into that category. Obviously, there's just the individuals on those, and of course the Nafra 20 and the Tornado when it goes out. But so effectively, they're a PN, which is the Portsmouth number. So everybody's given a handicap number, and don't ask me how it works out because I couldn't tell you. But basically, less than 850 points, and the monohull of less than 930. So that will cover the Musto skiffs and all the fast cats. The next one is the Catamaran fleet, which predominantly is our sprints, the Sprint 15s, or any other catamaran with a PN number of higher than 850. So the lower the number, the faster you're meant to be. After the catamaran fleet, we have our monohull. Now, this just did change last year and did cause a little bit of confusion because we did not pay the sailing structures, which is my bad. But we have one fleet. We used to have fast and slow monohulls. Now we just have the one monohull fleet. And that starts off, they will start off on their own. And that's basically all monohull dinghies, obviously the number greater than 930. This will include all the cadets. So any boat sailed by an under 18. And we've made particular reference to cadets this year. Most of these points, just to bring in, were taken from the sailing AGM that we held in November, I think, or at the end of the season last year. But we had actually a really good turnout of people, and lots of ideas were thrown around. And certainly with the amount of cadets that are now coming through, thanks to Andrus and Nick and their hard work behind the scenes, we've got a lot of good cadets out there who want to go and race in the main fleet. So we want to give them an opportunity to join in. We then have the Sandhopper fleet, as you all know. And we also have made provision this year for our cruiser fleet. So there are a number of cruisers on the moorings now, and Wes has kindly taken up the cruiser class captain role. And hopefully we'll have some, he's got some jollies booked in and going off and doing journeys and doing trips and maybe joining some of the racing. So if they want to join the racing, we've got a class organised for them to do that. So those are the fleets. Excuse me. So our class flags. So right, section 7 of the sailing instructions. So I've got 25 of these. So if you want to just pass them around, can you just pass those over to the phone? Just chuck them around and try and share them about a bit. So take one between two or something like that. So basically it's page 2. This one we need to look at. This will be on the committee boat for you. So if you want a reference point, these sailing instructions are laminated and they'll be living on the committee boat. So you don't have to remember all this. So basically we just listed them out as I have listed them previously, but giving you now a flag. So I've put the gun.
Where are all the sailing instructions online? Club racing.
So I've introduced from the race box. So this is class flag D, and that is the Windward Lured. Okay, so that's what you'll hoist on the committee boat, or if in the shore box in the winter series, that's what you hang out the front. And that will set, that's the start or the warning signal for the Windward Lured fleet. The next one is the monohulls, and that is the third substitute flag, as it is called. You'll see that flag. So that signifies the monohull fleet. And then we've got naval numeral 0, which is the sandupper class flag. I forgot to pick up the cruiser one, which is, if you look in here, is the whiskey flag, which is the red, white, and blue, or blue, white, and red squared flag. That's the W flag, and that we use for the stuff for the cruisers. And then if we're doing a trophy race, we use trophy R, and that's the mass starts. So it's when everybody starts together. So you haven't got to worry about all the fleets. You just put that up and everybody goes. So that's a nice, easy thing. So that's how they. That's the class flags. Again, as I say, it's all been on the committee boats. You haven't really got to worry about it too much. So, of course, let's come back to that actually in a minute. So, whilst you've got the sailing instructions, these are, if you like, the Bible for the club's year's racing. So, these will be published, so you'll be able to sit and read these. You've got rules in terms of things like the insurance that you're required to have, the personal buoyancy that you're required to have, the numbers on your sails that you're required, signals made ashore, the racing area, so in other words, how where it should be, and if you start on a committee boat. If you look at, as you go to 9.1, so in terms of the course, we talk about committee boat start. So this is all club racing. We use the committee boat to start the racing during the season. The only time we use the shore box is during the winter series, icicle series, the frozen ships race, and the committee boat is free. We sometimes on a long distance race finish the race in the shore box. It makes sense to the timing wise. But generally speaking, you want to be starting from the committee boat. And you notice it says in red that a port hand course should always be used. So that means that we're going round the course to the left. You're always turning left. There's a reason for this. Is one, a lot of boats are set to hoist and spinnakers on the port side. Some of the hurricanes, for example, have a starboard hand mast cleat. So if you're going around the other way, you can't get to it. It also allows boats that are approaching the ley line, so those approaching to round the windward mark on the starboard tack, they have right of way, and the port hand boats coming up underneath you need to keep clear. So it's a much safer situation. And if we keep doing port hand roundies, I mean, last weekend, because of the wind direction, of course, when you are set at the shore box, it is that much harder to set a good course. Chris Clark set a great course for us, but it was a starboard hand rounding one. And the confusion that caused, certainly for me, trying to think, hang on a minute, where's my ley line? Where do I need to be? Oh, hang on a minute, we're going that way around the buoy, not this way around the buoy. So it just keeps everything on a level playing field and doesn't cause confusion. You may have noticed in the past we've set starboard hand courses and people have still gone round to port and some have gone round to starboard and it could be quite dangerous. So that means you might need to move the committee boat, which, believe me, is simple to use, simple to move. There are instructions in photograph format on there. If you're stuck with a committee boat, somebody just shout and somebody will come out and help you move it. If you really can't get it going, we can tow it with sea safety 2 or 3. It's not a problem. It's very, very easy to use and to manoeuvre. And again, remember our objective, to try and set the best racing we can for our club members. By having the committee boat in the right position, you will be able to set a much better course. It then goes on to talk about the course diagram. Don't get frightened by that. It's a load of lines, I know, but it's quite simple when we break it down, and we'll go through that in a moment. And then there's the explanation of all these marks. This is how you have to set them out, unfortunately, because you have to be, with sailing instructions, if you use words like, for example, a port hand course must be used, then if the situation presents itself where you cannot do a port hand course for whatever reason, then you can't run the race because it hasn't got the word. So we use the word a foot course should always be used. So it's words like this you have to go through and think about when you're doing sailing instructions and what the wording really means. And it's quite tricky. And we have lots of people looking at them, and you look at them and you still find errors. So hopefully they're okay. It talks about the finish and how to shorten course and protests, how they're scored and the prizes. So it goes right the way through what the situation would be for a race. So if we go to our diagram now, sorry, just look at say if there's any anybody wants to ask a question or questions on it, or even just offer a good point of practice that they've found the work, so please do shout out. I'm by no means a trained police officer. I've just picked it up as I've gone along, so don't always get it right. So please, if you think you've got a good point, do let me know. So setting a course. Let's use the whiteboard for this, and we'll try and demonstrate actually what we've got to sort out. So the first thing to do is think about, we've got a set of buoys out there. They're numbered from the shore from the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Middle row, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then out by the Mulberry Harbour, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So there are 15 buoys out there, and they should be enough to use. But of course, if the wind's in an odd direction, they're laid out in a square, we might be coming across that square at an angle. So it doesn't always work, and you've just got to make the best that you can. But let's just assume that, I think because the board's this way, but let's just say that's the pier, okay? And here's our stand here, okay? And the Mulberry is there, okay? So we've got a rough idea where we are. If we've got, and we spoke about this in the adult training, didn't we? The prevailing wind, generally speaking, is coming from the pier head into the club when we do get it. So it's a southwesterly. That makes life a little bit awkward because we've got these rows of buoys here that we're now trying to work out a square course. So we've got a wind coming from here. You don't, and you want to put your windward mark, therefore, your first mark needs to be somewhere up in this area, doesn't it? You don't want to put your committee boat in this sort of section here. You want to be down roughly where she is. Now she's on an anchor, she's on a mooring quite close in to the buoys. It can be used where it is. You don't have to always move it, but it is potentially a good idea to get that angle true. So let's say we decide to use in the middle of the number 8 mark, which is about there, as our windward mark. So we've now set our committee boats up. I'll just do that, okay? This is the customary. Actually, sorry, down about here. So the idea is we want to sail the feet up to here. So we want to get that square to the wind. So the wind current here, the boats are heading off in this direction. They can't sail into the wind. They've got to zigzag up to number 8. So once you've laid that, once you've got that sorted, you've got your windward mark. That's the first thing you just need to do. Find a windward mark that's going to work for you and put your committee boat directly downwind from that point. The next thing you've got to do is find a leeward mark, a bottom mark. And that might be, in this instance, number 2, which is about here. Okay. So that's directly downwind. So we've got a good upwind and a good downwind. You've got that set. What I might have to do is, sorry, just move that slightly down here. Okay. Bit difficult doing it on the angle. So as you can see by the course here, we've got lots of arrows up and down, and we've got a square. So once the boats that do what we call an upwind downwind course are the windward leeward fleet, hence the name, windward leeward. So they just go up and back. The sandhoppers go up and back, and the fins now go up and back. Okay, so that's 3 of your classes taken care of just by getting those 2 buoys right. The sprints will do the square course, so they will do. So we call this mark actually on our diagram. This is mark A, and that is mark D.
Yeah.
Okay. The sprints will now go a square course, so they'll want a buoy over here perhaps, and a buoy down there. Now, if it's possible to use the marks, but if we've got 2 and number 3s here, there's probably not 1 there. So what you might have to do is skew. You don't have to have a perfect square. You can have a rhombus. So you could kick them this way, so they could come up to actually, what would that be? 10, 13, I think. Let's just say that one there. And then you could probably use, I think we've got 7 here, isn't it? Number 7 there. So as you can see, it's not a square, but it works. They'll have a slightly tighter reach on this angle and a slightly broader reach on that. But that's fine, because I'm sure they'll have fun with that. They'll still get their reaching in, and they'll still get what they need to do. Now you've pretty much got everybody sorted. So again, just to recap, first thing to do is set your windward. Next thing to do is find a decent lure. Remember, there are big orange inflatable buoys in the boats and stuff. If you don't like one of the club marks, there's plenty of rigs and rescue boats. Get them radio in, get me a special mark, and bring it out, and you can put a special mark in. Now, so you use a special if you wanted that angle here. If it didn't really work for you, you can put marks in. You don't have to use the club marks all the time. Then we've got the monohulls. They do the blue line, which is A, C, D. Now this has changed from last year. They used to do A, B, D. So they used to go up here and then down to here. We'll come on to why we changed that in a moment. So now they'll come up to number 8. They'll now broad reach down to number 7, broad reach into number 2, and back up on the beat. That's their course. The reason we've done that is because to help the cadets now, we always used to have a cadet mark, which we used to lay as a shorter upwind mark, somewhere about here. Okay, and we're calling that in this instance A1. Because that's A, and so A1 is their mark. Now the reason we've done that is because if they came to here, they'd have to still go off to there. And that's not a lot further, it's not a lot less distance than that. But now what they'll do is they'll also go to 7. So their triangle will become this one. Okay. So they'll go A1, 7, 2, whereas the monohulls will go to 8, 7, 2. You see the format there. So with the cadets doing this, that should help. And what we use for here is a bit like the pin-in mark, the other end of the start line. There's a small dummy buoy in the race box in the bosun's map we can use for A1. So you could, all you've got to do is just drop that in line. Nothing special. Just drop it in line, and they'll pick it up. As long as it's not too close to that, or too close to that, you know, it'll work. So you've now got what we've drawn, which is windward leeward, going up and down. Sprints doing that. Monohulls doing that. Cadets doing that. That's the diagram we've got here, which looks really confusing, but hopefully you can see now it actually isn't. It's quite straightforward. There is a further mark that we put in here, and this is for the windward leeward fleet. What we used to do is, if there was a lot of hurricanes, we used to send them up to a windward mark further up here, and give them slightly longer, just to spread out the fleets a bit. So we used to put a mark up here, and they'd come all up here, and then down to 2. The problem that became is that around 2, you've got every single fleet that there is trying to round a leeward mark. You've got some coming in at this angle and some coming in at this angle. And this is where it all overlapping boats, spinnakers up, dropping spinnakers, it all can get a bit messy. So at the suggestion of the windward leeward class captain at the time, they said, well, let's instead of stretch the windward, let's stretch the leeward. So we have a mark now called, sorry, you can't always see that, D1. So what the windward leeward fleet will do is they'll come up here and down to this one and back through. Okay, so they'll stretch their run. So still get a long beat, and they still get a long run, but if you just literally just shunted it down to try and keep the carnage, if you like. And bear in mind they're coming down with spinning stuff, so they'll be coming up here and down here. So they won't be going around this buoy or anywhere near this buoy. So that's the plan. And we'll see how it goes, and if it doesn't work, we can do something different. It's a nice thing with this. We can always change it. If it doesn't work, we can always change it. Does that make sense?
I mean, in this example, there is not much space beyond 2.
No, there's not a lot of space beyond 2. So you've just got to think about that. Now, if you're a race officer on a Saturday, for example, predominantly the Hurricanes sail on a Sunday. So if you're racing on a Saturday, you don't have to, but if you notice in the sailing instructions, in the where it lists the courses, it says windward leeward class goes to A to D1 brackets D. So in other words, if you've not got many out there, don't trouble yourself setting a buoy that really nobody's going to go around. We'll just leave it at D, and they'll go to D. Okay.
So D1 is always a special, is it?
Yeah. So again, please note, mark D1 should be a large inflatable buoy.
Right.
Okay. And that you'll notify that with the marks on the boat. Either I'll get a D1 made up, it's probably easy to do, or use the SP special. Okay. And the windward lewards are always noted on the front of the committee boat. The square course is noted on the back of the committee boat, and the courses, i.e., you've got ABCD on the back of the committee boat. The stand-uppers pick the first and last. The monohulls will pick the first, third, and last, and so forth. So that's how they know their course. So you only have to really lay 1, maybe 2 courses. The rest all falls in. It all sits in itself. And again, you can use special marks wherever you want to. As I say, you don't have to use the mark you want.
Sorry, so which course would the cruisers take?
The cruisers, that's a very good question because we didn't put that in there, did we? There you go. See what I mean? It's always the amount of times you read these. There's always something. I'll have to have a word with the class captain and we'll get that sorted. Very good point. Thank you.
So when you lay these buoys out, I mean, how are they taken away that day or?
No, the club marks, they're out there now. They don't come in. Yeah, they're out there. And to make life a little bit easier, they do fade a bit, we have the father's left hand, so that's 1, 6, 11, a yellow, the next row in a red, the next row in a yellow, the next row in a red, and then yellow again. So you've got a bit of a clue. You say, oh, it's a yellow mark. Oh, it's not number 8, it's number 9.
But they're out there all year?
They're out there all year.
Oh, okay.
Until there's a big storm and they end up in All Hallows and have to drive around and go and get them. But,
when I first joined, I never knew my courses were company.
all right.
So so I was just like follow the first one in, see where we go, and then race on from there. So if I never knew that, and I actually say I was quite a competent sailor, as a racer, I've been able to pull all this. I find it not so complicated.
Yeah.
But if someone new to it, it's going to be.
Yeah, it is. And, if in doubt, always ask. But it does say that under windward leeward, marks A, B, C, D displayed on the back of the committee boat. And marks A, D, and D1 displayed on the front of the committee boat. So that you know where to put them. So it's just about really digging into these when you're racing and just having a good old read through them and making sure that you understand what's about. But yeah, if you turn up and you do and you haven't got the hold of those or read those, then sure, yeah, you're going to have to work it out. But hopefully your class captain will advise you. Yeah.
Positioning the committee boat, ideally what, third of the way up the beach?
Yeah, oh yeah. So you notice I've put the committee boat down at the back end here. We used to have the committee boat right in the middle. And now, of course, what you have to do is each time you do a lap, you've got to go through, let's say, that's your committee boat, yeah, and there's the other end of the start line. It's a bit long there, but for demonstration purposes, you've got to come back through the line each time to record your lap. And when you have it in the middle of the fleet, what you have is boats that want to tack off here. You've got a pitch point where they've all got to come back and cross your line. They can't decide to do this, yeah? So you've got this pinch point where you drag everybody back through the middle of the course again, and nobody can really play corners, sides, and work out where tides and winds are going to affect you. So we tend to have the committee boat really about 150 yards from your leeward mark, so that when you come to finish, you're down here, and there's your pin, you come round your bottom mark, you might have 1, 2, 3 tacks, perhaps 2 tacks. Again, that little beat of a couple of tacks can actually get very taxable. Sometimes with the tide, it's a bit of a procession, or there's only one way to go. But you quite often see people trying something different, just to nick a bit of ground. So it's quite fun, and it's also quite easy for the race officer to work out what the head is going on, because you can see the boats coming around the leeward mark, and you can see who's coming up next. But you'll get some boats that will come around the leeward mark and tack and go this way. Some boats will tack down here and try and lay that in one. So there's lots of different tactics you could throw into that makes it a little bit interesting. It then also, once you've gone through the line, it leaves you free to split off and come out and play the corners or bang the corners as we call it. Lots of squiggly lines, all look terribly confusing, but actually just it's quite simple. If you windward mark, your leeward mark set, the rest will actually fall into place.
On the run for the windward leeward course and for the sandhoppers, there was the tradition that you must avoid the start line and go around.
Yeah.
On this drawing, it suggests a different.
No, it does say that in the drawings just for diagrammatical purposes. But you must not, on the downwind course, you are not allowed to go through the start finish line. Again, it's a safety feature. So there's a little trick as well, so you can help them and you can make life easier for yourself, which we'll come on to. So just clear that away for a moment. And just have a look at setting your start line. This is something actually that's really, really simple, but a lot of people make a big mess of. Let's just make it easier. So wind's coming this way, and you've got your committee boat here. First of all, you always put your committee boat will be the right-hand end of the line, and pin, as we call it, or the little round buoy, the pin end of the line, the other end of the line will be up here. Now, quite simple. This is 90 degrees to the wind. Okay, so you've got a true start line, and again 90 degrees to the wind. Now, what happens is if you don't get that spot on, and it's not very easy to do, and you stick a mark here, you can see immediately that if you draw your start line, yeah, that the pin end is much closer. Let's just say that there's your mark, there's your windward mark here. Okay, that's where we're going to. The pin of the start line is closer. That distance is shorter than that distance. Yeah. So you'll get, that's what we call pin bias. So the bias of the line is towards the pin end. So this is where you'll see people start to try and start on port tack. Okay, when coming on the left hand side of the boat, they're going to come up here on port, as opposed to starting here. Oops, my boats are terrible. On starboard, okay. Starboard has the right of way, as we know, and if you've got smashing of boats down the line trying to start on starboard, yeah, this guy's going to have a hell of a trouble getting across the start line unless he's good. And this is where you'll see who's got it and who hasn't. And if you can get across the fleet, if you can start on at the pin end on port, the chances are, if you're clear, you'll get across them and can tack up here back on the starboard and have them all down to leeward on you. So that's a great opportunity, but it's a trick to do because you don't have any rights at all down there. So that's a pin bias, and then obviously you've got a committee boat bias, which is when we don't put the start line far enough, and that line now is much longer than this line. And this is the tradition. Most people will start at the committee boat end because you're on starboard. You'll see them all gathering up here, sails flapping, and at the last minute trying to do what they call a cowboy start, 5 in, squeeze round, squeeze in, and normally ends up in tears or getting pushed out or getting squeezed out, and you have to go around and start again. And it's always quite good fun. So as a race officer, what you want to try and do is either set a good square line, which means you are the 90 degrees to the wind, okay? And by doing that, if you've got your windward marking correctly, you can just stand on the committee boat and literally do that. That's 90 degrees. It's really easy to do. And look down your arm, and if you've got the rib coming up, towing the buoy, you wait till your buoy is in line, shout, drop over the radio, don't drop the anchor in, the buoy will stay where it is, and you've got your 90-degree line. This is always, of course, assuming that this thing here, the wind, stays true, which of course we all know that it doesn't. It's continually moving. So it's as a race officer on the front of the committee boat, you've got a great big Windex that's an arrow. Don't stand right behind it because you're in the vortex and you'll cause it to do this. You've got to stand to the side of it and kind of look down it or stand away from it. But it'll give you a pretty good indication of where your wind is. If you look down that line, look down this line, and your buoy's at the end of your arm, you've pretty much got it sorted, yeah? But it's really important to get a good line. So many people get it wrong. The line is just awful, or you can't. Sometimes you'll see this will have changed. The race officer won't have noticed it's actually now coming from here, and because he's got a big pin bias, nobody can actually cross the start line on starboard. And you see them. So watch the boats around you. Ask a couple, just go at wind for me, and put it on the wind, and they'll go at wind for you, and you can see, are they going to cross that line? So with that wind angle here, your boat's going to cross the line. You might not, if here, you're potentially not going to get across the line. Or the other way around, it's so fast the other way around that it just won't work. So watch your wind all the time. And if it does move dramatically where you really haven't got, because if the wind moved and settled here, well, everybody's going to start here. And what they're going to do is they're going to make that in one. So your beat's gone. Yeah, you want to have people doing this to get round. If they can't do that because they're sailing into wind, they're just going to sail straight here. Your beat's gone. Your race becomes a procession. Now, obviously, if that happens once the race started, it did unfortunately for Christmas Saturday afternoon, we all did a great first lap. Second lap, the wind went, whoop, and there's nothing you do. You just got to let it go. And it was a pretty much a one leg run down to number 8, and we might have put one tack in to get round the finish line coming back. So it was really, really hard then to overtake anybody, and it just becomes a procession. So it just might as well finish it. So you have got to watch your wind. Keep your eye on it. If it changes dramatically, you can reset and start again. Even if you've got to pull the anchor, committee boat and drive somewhere else, do it. Because again, remember our objective, try and give the best possible racing that we can to the sailors. So think about just start line, 90 degrees to the wind, get the line in, and if you're not happy with it, ask the rig to pull it up and move it forwards a bit. Yeah, and just keep your eyes on it. But watch the boats sailing around you. They're the biggest indications you've got to whether your start line's good or bad. Okay. So start sequence. Yeah.
So you just mentioned like the size of the start line to your fleet.
Yes, sure. So, yeah, you can set the start line, and you how long does it need to be? So you've got to look at, again, the amount of boats that are starting. Maybe not all starting at once, but for example, your biggest fleets, if you've got 15 of the Hurricanes that are out there, they're pretty big. They're, 2.9 meters long and they're about 10 feet wide. So they're pretty big, and when they're all wrapped up, they take up a lot of room. So you want to look at the boat lengths. You want to be longer than the total, about 10% longer than the total boat lengths you've got out there. So it takes just a little bit of math. So if you've got 10 boats, you've got 60 meters, a bit longer than 60 meters, 10%, maybe 66, 70 meters long. Very difficult to gauge when you're in the water, when you're trying to look at a little buoy floating up in the distance. So it isn't easy to gauge. But just a little bit of common sense to that. And again, if you haven't got very many boats, the shorter the start line, the more competitive it will be. You know, sometimes we set a start line and you think, crikey, nobody, hey, come on, we'll get across it. So everybody's fighting for it as well. But if it's too long, it's just easy because there's no competitiveness in it. But yes, it's a good point.
How many meters between each buoy then? Are they
Oh, I couldn't tell you actually.
About half a kilometre between each mark.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's yeah, fair distance. Okay, so the first warning signal. So that's when we're going to put up our D flag. We have a start sequence: 3 minute, 2 minute, 1 minute, go. Okay, so your sequence is first warning signal is time, your start time minus 3 minutes, because you want to start the first fleet at the start time. So let's say you've got a midday start, so 11:57. If you can, that one goes up. If you're late, it doesn't matter, right? But if you can, as close as you can as possible. 3 minutes, D flag. Then at 2 minutes, again, we have the blue Peter, the P flag. Okay, so 2 minutes, P goes up, and you'll see the flags flying from the mast like that. At 1 minute, this is a preparatory signal. At 1 minute, P comes down. So this is where your assistant racer needs to be good with halyards. Okay. At the next minute, these guys are going to start. So that's going to come down, but the next fleet will then take over. Okay. So that will come down, that will go up. So you've now got your windward leeward are off and running, and you've got your monohulls in sequence. Sorry, I can remember what's next. So they start next. So again, that's another 3 minutes. This is 1 minute after the start time. That's 1 minute after the start time, their P flag goes up. But the next minute, their P flag comes down. On the next minute, the monohulls are about to start. So this comes down and the sand upper goes up. Okay. It's easy, isn't it? At the next minute, the sand upper's preparatory goes up. The next minute, the sand upper preparatory comes down. And the next minute, so this is down, assuming there's no cruises out, the sand upper starts. So when the class flag goes up, that's their warning. 3 minutes. You've got 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, be prepared. At 1 minute, prepared comes down. 1 minute to go. On the start, that comes down. So race ups, you've got to make sure that all the boats are the right side of your start line. And
the start line actually? The mast of the
the start line is the notified by 2 oranges while we have orange buoys. So the pin end is an orange mark, so it's that orange mark. And it is the orange flag, officially, it's the orange flag that you fly when you hoist up the club bird sheet. You have a club bird sheet, orange flag, and a red flag. The red flag means you're going down to port, and the course is all to port. The orange flag means that that's your committee boat is on station and you're ready to go. So you want to be drawing a line, an eye line, so you stand behind predominantly the mast. Okay, this is where it flies from, so that you can see the mast here and the pin end here, and you're the transit. So you've now got a straight line, and you can see if anybody is over that line, then they are what we said earlier, OCS, on course sign. Do you know the flag we fly for OCS? Got anybody over the line? It's the X flag, that one. So if one boat or two boats, or you can identify who they are. What you then do, and they're on the committee button, the big pole, you have them ready. You see a boat over the line, you put that up with one sound signal. Okay? That will so you've got a hoot for the going, you've got boat over, one hoot, this goes up, and the guys look back, was I clear? Oh crap, somebody's on course side, somebody's over the line. Well, it definitely wasn't me because they was in front of me, or I certainly had the transit, or whatever it was. It's usually an argument. Difficult to know when you're on the line. So this is why you need, as I say, you need to get the transit so that you can work out where you are. When the boat comes back, who's the offender, he then has to basically recross the line. When he's completely recrossed the line, and he's the only one that says there's only one, this comes down. That signifies that everybody else is clear, and the offending boat is now can recross the line and start to go.
Quick question, do they have to go round the mark, or can they literally just go back across the?
That will depend on what you've flown here. If this is flown, no, they can just recross the line. They don't have to go around the ends. They don't have to. But there are other versions of this, which we won't go into just a moment. Which will, yes, that's true. Go around the ends. So you just come back across the line. If you've got a nice race officer, he might shout all clear, and he turn around and he can go back. If nobody comes back, how long's the start for? On that. To the end of the race. To the end of the race. 4 minutes. This goes up for 4 minutes. Okay. Again, we've seen people that have this up on the front of the about all the race. It just stays up for 4 minutes. And then if nobody's come back, you mark them down. OCS, they're effectively disqualified from the race, and that will be it. Okay. If one boat comes, if you've got more than one boat over, you know who they are. One boat comes back, you've still got to keep it up. You can't lower it because there's others. And if the other boat doesn't come back, you keep this up again for 4 minutes. Or until, let's just say, it's applicable until the next start. So if you're halfway through a sequence, you're going into the next sequence. Before their start, you've obviously got to lower it, otherwise the next start will think they're over the line. So if you're in our sequence, generally you see a sailing rules, a racing, there you have a 5 minute gap. We shorten it to 3 to make life easier. So if it's the first start, so windward lurch load over, this will go up. You can't keep it up for 4 minutes because at 3 minutes, the next fleet's starting, so you come down. Oh.
Do you use the rescue boat to tell them they're over the line?
No. It's up for it's the responsibility of the compressors to know they are over the line.
I mean, obviously, people going over the line. That happens a lot. People do go.
Yeah, it can happen. It does. To be fair, it doesn't really happen all the time racing. We don't often get it. If you've got a national championships, you will get people pushing because you've got a lot more boats and they're all trying to get that edge and get that nose in and try and work it out. Now, if you happen to have an amount of boats over and you've got maybe winds just shifted or and they've all come up and or the tides push them over and everybody's over, and you go, well, I don't know who's over and who isn't. Then this one goes up. Okay. Third stop, if I'm remembering rightly. First substitute. This then goes up 2 hoots from the committee boat. This is the general recall. So that means you're all mucked it up, you're all over, and now you're all back, and we'll start again. So this is when the grid can go round, because some people shoot off and haven't heard it or haven't seen it, and say, back, because you want to get this going quickly. Now, if it's the windward leeward fleet showing off and they've gone on first, and you've now in sequence because they've gone and you're in sequence with your next one, they go to the back of the queue. All right. So once the sound officer has gone, you can then send off the windward leeward again. So that's a general recall. 2 hoots, everybody back, and you just start it again. Okay.
On that, Howard,
Yeah.
On the committee boat, that you're not raising those, are you, as such, because they're
on
a double-ended pole.
Yeah.
So as a race officer, try and keep the fleet in check. If you stand there on the deck with that in your hand, then people aren't going to push the line so much. because
that's
they,
right,
because
yeah.
if you haven't got it in your hand, they know that it's not going to be a flag going
Yeah.
up very easily.
There's two. They're on. I think they're on individuals on the police boat actually. They are, yeah. So they're on quite nice big poles, and you can stand up and you can hoist it, and it's quite loud, and you get a good blast on the hooter, and people should be able to see it. And as Pete says, if you've got it, what you have to be very careful of with flags is that they're not flying. If you've got it in your hand horizontally, and the flag's dropped and it's flapping about in the wind, that's a general recall. Okay, because you're not being clear. It doesn't have to be at the top of the mast. It can be, and again, people when they lower the flags, they leave them hanging at the bottom, and they're all flapping in the wind. Flying the flag is flying a flag, whether it's flapping at the bottom or up the top flapping. So try and just keep them tied up around the halyards and try and keep them out of sight. So it's very, very clear. Because if you're a distance away, sometimes the committee boat, you're not, maybe not quite sure. Is that? I've seen a general recall flag. I saw it flying, and I've come back. You don't. The racing is run on flags, not sound. Okay, so if you've got, if you think you hear a sound but you can't see a flag, don't respond to it. Okay, it's the flags that are important, which is why when we're hoisting them, we try and get them to the top of the halyard as the gun goes. Okay, not gun goes and then we start to raise this thing. They should be shooting up as fast as you can, top of the halyard. Okay, and it's clear then that that's what they are. So if the hooter doesn't work, it doesn't matter. If you have a fail on the hooter, it doesn't matter. You can shout, "Who?" You know, Rupert's done that plenty of times. He's got a nice loud voice. You don't need a sound signal. It is raised on the flags. Okay, what the other flags mean? AP. I think this is one of the most important flags that there is. Okay, it's called AP answering pennant. It is your friend. Okay, things go pear-shaped. All right, you can put this up when you feel like. If your wind has suddenly gone, as we said here, it's gone like this and it's settled in, there's no way your boats can cross the line. Do you know what? Anytime you like in the sequence, one loud hoot, AP, sorry, two hoots, AP, fly AP, it's a reset. Start again. Okay, it means I'm abandoning this, I'm giving up on this start, I'm postponing. It's a postponement flag, okay? I'm postponing what's going on, and we'll settle back down. I'll bring the, if the wind's done that, I'll bring the pin down to here. We'll change, you probably won't change the course. I'll just bring the pin down, make it a fair start line. And then when you're ready to go, one hoot, this flag comes down. It's important though that this flag comes down is also the 1 minute signal to going back into sequence again. Okay, so it's the same as start goes wrong. They're in there 1 minute to go. You think, oh, it's all gone wrong. Bring that down. Two hoots, AP, reset. When you're happy, one hoot comes down exactly 1 minute later. You can start the sequence again. Okay, so I would say this is the race officer's friend because all goes wrong. Just whack that and you can start again. The wind dies and you think, oh, nobody's going to get away. Or there's all sorts of things. So what could possibly go wrong situation? This is where you use that. PI black and U flags. P obviously we've done, that's the preparatory. So you mentioned about where you cross the line. You've got an I flag, a black flag, and a U flag. Just briefly, I won't go into it. They are replacements for this, and you generally only use them in a championship series. You've got a lot of boats, and if you had a couple of general recalls because they're all pushing the line, and you've done two of these now, and you still can't get the race away, then instead of the P flag, you can put up the I flag, which is a yellow with a black dot in the middle, which means when you have to come back down the line, you have to go round the end. So you have to go around the end here and cross, or around the committee boat and cross. You can't go back across the line and restart. The black flag, so if you get to see a solid black flag instead of this, that's danger. because in the, let me just draw this again. So, we're just touching it. So you've got your triangle. There's your windward mark. There's your committee boat. And there's your pin. There is a triangle here, yeah? There's your start line. Anywhere in that triangle is what we call on-course side. So you're on the course. You're on the race course. So generally sitting back here. If a black flag goes up, because it goes up at the 1 minute, or the 2 minute point for us, 1 minute before our sequence. When that flag comes down, i.e. the last minute before we go, if anybody crosses over the line, they are disqualified. End of. No argument, they're out. And you can have a rib sitting up here and say, sorry, you're over the line. Don't come out of the course. So we don't really use it for cup racing. The U flag or uniform flag is a red and white checkered flag. And that can be replaced instead of the black flag, and it gives you another chance. Because if you are over the line, because perhaps the wind shifted and everybody's over the line, and the race officers will actually, I can't get the way our general recall it, but you are on course side, you get to go again. You're not disqualified. So there's just variations on that. So class flags, so don't worry too much about those. Class flags we've done. X and first substitute rows, yes, okay. X flag, first sub. The S flag, that's this fella here. Reverse of the blue Peter. And we use this for short course. So when some people say, well, how many laps am I doing? We're doing as many laps as the race officer wants you to do before he decides he's had enough or he's gone long enough. Or the conditions change and it's safe or not safe to do so. Yeah. So the idea is that we have a race length, which we'll come on to, and when you decide whether that race length is up, and just before as the boats are going around that last mark, you raise the S flag with 2 long hoops on the horn, and that will signify to all the racers out there that's the end of the race. And then as the boats cross the line, you finish them. Okay? That's the S flag.
So that's the tricky thing, because when we raise it, if the fleet is spread apart, because then some will have a very short race, and others will have a long race.
It's generally gone for an hour or so, so you shouldn't have too short a race. That depends on what you've done as the race officer, of course. We'll come back onto that. Okay, yeah. The last 2 flags, N and N over A. These, thankfully, only don't get used very often whilst you're on the water. N flag is abandon or racing, and you normally fly it in that sequence. N over, that's A. Do I have a diver down? Is it A? That's what that signals. But together on a race course, I've dropped them, they will signify no more racing. And when you hoist this, let's just say you can see that an almighty squall coming. It's on the forecast. It's going to get horrible, and you get flattened everybody. Let's get everybody in. It's safe to do so. This goes up. 3 loud bursts on the hooter, and that is it. No more racing today. Everybody in. Okay. I think I used it once in the Forest Cap. When it whipped up to about sort of 33 knots and getting a bit leery, and we finished the last race. Oh, yeah. No, yeah, that's it. That's it. You can. I mean, I think we did it actually. We finished the race, and we're about to start the next one, and it just came through. It was horrible. And I said, no, actually, you know what? That's it. Boop, boop, boop. 3 hoops. Up we go. Everybody knows right, I'm going in. Good. They were quite happy for it. You can do it in the middle of a race if it's looking horrible, or the wind has just completely died to nothing. There's no sea breeze looking like it's coming, and it's just, again, tide's whipping out. It's getting pointless. Let's just can this one, start again another day. So that means no more racing today. That's just abandoned. This race is abandoned. This is all races abandoned. So no more racing today. So if you need to abandon, let's say your wind has gone completely and everybody's reaching to the first mark, and it's clearly not fair. The first beat is clearly not fair. You can abandon that race and bring everybody back and restart that race with the two of them, and that's it for the day. No, you've got to be fair to everybody. If everybody's finished the lap, then you potentially could. If you've abandoned, it's abandoned, I think. Yeah, I think it's then gone. Otherwise it gets a bit, because generally it's gone for a reason that it's not a good course, not a good race. Okay.
Is there a point in the start sequence where a competitor must not be on the course side?
Under a black flag, I flag or a U flag with 1 minute to go for the start. If you've flown that instead of the P flag, then they cannot be over the course side. Otherwise, you can. Some people start up here, dive back down, dip and off they go. And if you've got room to do so, that's fine, as long as you're on the right side.
Which part of the committee though is the start line? Which end of the pin is the start line, and which bit of your boat you'll be?
Any part of your boat over.
Yeah.
So if you've got a bow spread, that's part of your boat, that will count. The orange buoy is a small enough buoy to draw a line from. And generally speaking, we'll use the mast on the committee boat. It's the orange flag is flown from as close to the mast as it can be. And generally, because the flag's up there, you can't get a transit, so we use the mast.
So the back into the mast.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can literally stand with your head on the mast and peer down one side of it, look at the pin, and you've got an absolute true line there. Okay. Yeah, because that's correct. I normally do the front of the mast myself, but so we're off. Racing's going. So how do we score it? This is the sheet that you'll see on the boat. You fill it in. This is actually, because of the fleets, with the Catamaran monohull fin. This is a winter series one, because you'll have another class, obviously. The Catamaran. Excuse me. So yeah, you put your race officer in, and then as your first boat comes around, you write the class down. So I'll just use Hurricane Provenance. Usually they're the first boats to come around. 487, that's my boat, so we're winning. You put in the time of day. So I'll just pick. So we're starting here at 1:30. Okay. So the Wimbledon started at 1:30. It's really important that you get this noted, because Graham will need to work out when he does the results. He's got to know your start time to know how long you sail for to get when you finish time. So lap one, we came round at 2 o'clock, 5 minutes past 2 and 39 seconds. Okay. You haven't got to fill every square in. It's pretty obvious that's 2. The next boat comes round at 5:45. Okay. And then a sprint comes along, and here's at 10 minutes and 5. So it's 2 o'clock still. You just assume that'll be 2. Generally fill the minutes in just because it's easier. Then we've got a couple of lasers come around. They're a bit slower, obviously. So 16 minutes, and they started behind us. So 2:16 and 57 seconds. And then the next boats come around at 2:17 and 12 seconds. Okay. So that's your first lap. So there's a clock on the boat. It's a radio sequence clock, so it should be accurate all the time. And you've got your start time, so you start at 30:30 on the dot, and your first boats come round. So it took them 35 minutes and 39 seconds to do their first lap. Bit long actually for a home, probably normally about 10 minutes. But whatever it is, that's what you record. The second lap, this is where it could get a little confusing. And Graham has asked that we do it this way because it's easier for him, he says. So Hurricane 487 is now not the first boat across the line, it's 455. We've been overtaken because at 14 hours, 48 minutes and 45, they came through, and we came through at 51:22. Okay, so we came with 3 minutes behind. So somewhere on the track, the position has changed. And rather than rewrite them all down, we just leave the same line. So that's 487's timings all the way through, and that's 455's timings all the way through. We just write down the timing of that particular boat. You've got to find them on here. and then write the number down. And again, sprint 2019 came through at 3 o'clock, so the hour's changed now. So you change the hour, 07:55, and the next vote came through at 08:10. And the same with the lasers. Yep, again, I've just done it so they've all changed places. So you haven't got to change your sequence, you just only write the vote number down once, you just write the time. And for the third lap again, there might be another hurricane come through first. Whatever the time is, you just write it down alongside the sail error. So you've got, as they come through, you've got to write, try and be clear with cell numbers. Lasers are difficult because they have 6 digits, okay? So try and be clear with cell numbers and what type of boat it is. If you've got a laser, there are 3 rigs, remember, there's the full rig, the radial, and the 4.9. Just write laser R or laser 4.9. Both.
But when you've got about 3 or 4 boats going over the line at the same time,
Yeah.
you're trying to find that boat on
Yeah.
the end and then refill it where it's supposed to be. You can't do it. So from my point of view, it's easier to write the sail number down every time and the time.
The problem you get with this is you get a load of cell numbers down. You've got to rewrite 6 digits each time.
That's easier
And
to find that boat.
if you've got somebody helping you on the race officer, you should be able to say 150's coming up, gives you a little bit of time just to find it. That's how he's asked us to do it. If you want to do it the other way, do it the other way, just don't get it wrong. That's how he's asked us, because then he just has to take Hurricane 487, he's just got to do the timing of each lap, and you can just key them into the system, and it will give out the position at the end of them all. And for round 3, round 4, round 5, and sometimes you might go onto another page. Sometimes you'll fill this because we have more than 22 boats out sailing. Sometimes you might have 30. So you have to have another page behind it, and you've just got to flip about between them. The one thing you don't have to do is record sandhoppers and fins anymore. So if you want to make life easy for yourself, I sometimes have a different sheet of paper and write sandhopper. First 17, second 41, third 159, blah, 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 on each lap. That's all you've got to write because they're in a class on their own. The timing doesn't make any difference. It's useful to have each lap as to who was first, second, third, in case anything goes wrong and you've got to go back to it. But generally speaking, you only need to take their position. And the same with the fins. They're only racing themselves, so there are no handicaps involved. So you can just write lap 1, fin number 2, second 41. This is progress, of course, yeah. But if they're class racing, you don't actually need to take their time. So you can make it easier for yourself. Because it is, as Bev said, it is busy sometimes. And if you've got a short course and you've got 5 boats crossing the line at the same time with another 5 following them up, it can get quite hectic. Which is why it's always used to have a third person to help you on the boat. Somebody reading numbers, yeah. Because once you're looking up, you can't read. So that's what we do. And at the end of the race, you've completed all that. Take a photograph with your phone, along with a photograph of the signing on sheet, because Graham doesn't necessarily know who was sailing on 50294. Signing on sheet, and you just email those to raceresults@tbyc.org, and Graham will get them and upload them. We don't put them behind the bar anymore. You can keep them just on your person, just in case you can't read anything that you've written and needs to ask you a question, to keep them for a week and then bin them. So that's fairly straightforward, and it's nice and easy. It works. Yeah, it does. If you've missed a boat, it's difficult. But at the end of the day, it's the final lap that counts. If all, for example, if you missed a sprint and they've all finished and they've all done 4 laps, the fact that you haven't got, again, it doesn't really matter. Again, most of the sprints are just racing themselves as well, aren't you? You don't race anybody else particularly, I don't think. So you could not do the timings, but it'd be useful to do. Okay. Clear as mud.
I think we're retiring. It looks like they're
really. Yeah. Yeah, you can see it. It's like, hang on, you also can see, hang on a minute, where's Sprint 219? He hasn't come out again. Where's he gone? And you suddenly see there was a sail on the beach. They might have broken something and gone in, or had enough, or need a wee, or whatever. So yeah, have a check that send a rib in. Have you retired? Is your intention retired? And then you just literally write RTD, and then grandma knows that boat is finished for the day. Okay. Key is it, just don't panic, don't worry about it. You miss one, get it wrong. You miss one, get it wrong. It's not the end of the world. Nobody will die. You might get somebody shouldn't have to do that. Or they'll work it out. They know, well, actually, you were in front of me, I was behind you. We know where you were on the course, so we can work it back. So that's it. The race is on. We're underway. Race length. Somebody mentioned what race length do. If we're doing one race a day, i.e., it's a trophy race, or there is only just time to run one race, we always try and do two now. About an hour and 15 for your first boat to finish. Okay, it's quite a long time, and particularly if you've got a short course, that's quite a few laps. So if you are doing one race, you might think about just doing a slightly bigger course, not enormous, just a slightly bigger course. Again, dependent on the wind direction, and all the tide, and all the other things you've got to think about. But about an hour and 15. If we're doing two races per day, between 45 and 50 minutes, your first boat to finish. So remember, at an hour and 15, that's your first boat. The last boat's probably not going to finish for at least an hour and 30, 35, 40. It could be a while. And we want to try and get the two races per day, 45, 50 minutes. That means everybody's finished at around about an hour. And you can flip it around and go again with your second one. So when to shorten course and finish, Sandra mentioned earlier. Again, it's really hard. You've got now everybody spread out. You've potentially got the lead hurricane up at the top mark. The last hurricane is still going down the run. You've got a cadet going round over here. You've got fins coming up down here. You've got sandhoppers going round. It's really difficult to know and to pick a time. Try not to, if you can, split fleets. So, i.e., the hurricanes tend to race each other, the sandhoppers tend to race each other, and the fins and the sprints. Try not to split them up. Sometimes it just can't be helped because they're just too far spread. But so look at where your first boat is generally going to be, potentially generally going to be one of the faster boats. And you say, okay, this hurricane is the lead one. They've all gone through the line now. Next time they come around, we're going to shorten the course. That might mean half of the sprints have gone and half of them haven't, or it might mean the cadets haven't actually finished one lap. That's fine. But just try and pick a point, and you also need a point where you've got a little bit of space, a little bit of time, because you now need to warn everybody and raise the S flag with two loud hoots on your horn, and let everybody know that they are finishing. As they come across the line, you take your final timings, and that's the job. But it is, as I say in the notes there, bigger slot, it is much easier said than done. You might decide, well, actually, when the sandhoppers go around, because they're generally a slower boat, but actually, well, they've all gone through, they've done two laps, so now on their third, we'll finish them at that. You can finish individual classes, but it gets tricky and people don't often know what you do. And
what is the method of finishing a particular class?
So, assuming we've got flags, so if you want to finish the sandhoppers only, you hoist that above that, and two hooks. That means only the sandhoppers are finishing.
Yeah.
Or whatever class flag you want to.
So you can't finish cadets only because
Yeah.
they don't have a class flag.
You can, they do, and if you look just over on your sailing instructions, I think it's on 13.1, you've got the Y flag, the yellow and red striped flag, the Yankee flag as we call it. You can finish the cadets using that, so you fly the S flag with that, and everybody knows that's just for the cadets. Okay, so you can just finish those if you need to. Timing. Just sorry, was it David? So,
It's not cross to go wrong.
oh God, what's happened there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It escaped.
I think I was there. Yeah.
I must have got it. There we go.
Sorry. Hide that one.
Yep.
So when Sean, yeah. So you can say finish the cadets if you want to sooner. So what could possibly go wrong? So there we are. So these are the points we talked about earlier. All these things can happen, plus many more. And trust me, it will get out there to test you. If you suddenly realise that I've raised the flag a minute at the wrong point, oh crap! And everybody's looking at it, what's he doing? Because it happens, and you get concentrating on lots of things, and you. That's what I'm. Messed up your timing. Put that up. 2 boots. Started again. So sorry guys. Very wrong. Yeah. Start again. I have done it. On a 5-4-2-1 gun. I'll put on 1 minute at the 2 minute and go shout to me. What are you doing? I'm like, oh crap. Yeah. I'm not thinking again. And that goes up. Start it all again. Reset. There you go. Okay. Nobody will argue. They'd rather get a fair start than a bad one, or where you think, well, I thought we were going. That they didn't know we were going, you know. So there's no wind. What I tend to do when I get out of the committee boat is I will put this up anyway. Because if you remember I said when it comes down, that's your 1 minute warning for the next sequence to start, the first sequence to start. So it gives everybody an idea, we're under 8 feet. When this comes down, all right, I better get ready because in 1 minute's time, the first one's going to be off. So I always tend to put this one up anyway. If there's no wind, then it just stays up. And sit around and be patient. And if you remember on the adult course, we were talking about how a sea breeze works. If it's a big, hot, sunny day, you can see those little puffs of cloud coming up over the land, and it's about lunchtime, and the sea has just gone like a mill pond. We had it at the Stand Up the Nationals. We're literally anchored because there was nowhere going. People were swimming off the back of the boats. There was nothing. But sure enough, looked from the east, ripples on the water, in she came. By the time the first race was underway, we were both of us sitting on the side of the boat. So using that, wait for the wind, everybody's going to have a great race rather than not. Again, the wind changes direction. It all goes wrong on your course. If the race is underway, there's nothing you can do about it. You just got to live with it. But you may, if it's your first race, finish it sooner, go again, reset your course, go again with another one. But again, if it's before the start, your wind changes and it all settles in. Suddenly, that say you had your prevailing wind and the sea breeze has kicked in, and suddenly now it's gone like that. Well, your windward mark's not going to be up there anymore. It's going to be over there. Put this one up, move the committee boat, reset the course, take your course cards away, and start again. Nobody will worry about it. They'll all follow you around. They'd rather have a good race than a rubbish one. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on start?
You want to try and start at the published time if you can. There are debates about this, aren't there, and yeah, it's absolutely right. We should be starting at the start time. However, if you have got literally half of the fleet on the beach still, you might just want to give them a few to come out. It's a club race. You know, people want to go racing, but you can certainly shout to people, as I've often done. You've heard me come out with Hurricanes get off the beach, because we can always the last ones off, and often miss the start. So just make sure you say that, just get out there on time, get out there and be ready. There's no reason why you can't be ready. And then, you know, we should try and start on time. Yes, we have. Yeah, we have pushed them back. We've realised this year, again, in trying to get 2 races in, and depending on where the tide was and time of day, we started potentially sooner than we should do, and we've had issues where you turned up and you can't get the rib in the water, let them go on your boat. So, and you've got half an hour to the start, so it's not going to work. So we have pushed that back a bit, more so people don't try and push ribs out when it's too shallow and hit rocks on the bottom. So to protect our boat. So we will try and look at that. Yeah, don't always get it right, but again, you can always AP it and start again.
It's a good question. One of these things I might usually stay where it is. When you get a normal, start swimming around.
Yeah.
How it's like on Sunday, swim around it, stay where it was.
Yeah.
Should the postponement go up then?
Well,
or would you just live with it?
Chris the race already started. I think it went while we were on our first lap, didn't it? So there's nothing here. Once you started the race and we've done the lap, you can't do much about it other than finish it sooner. You could abandon it and start it again. But for a club race, we would have run out of time, we'd have run out of tide, it started to flip and it started to push. So it's for me, if the wind goes on, it's just a bit of bad luck. There's not a lot you can do about it. If it goes before the start, yeah, absolutely. But keep an eye, know what's going on. You know, talk to people about forecasts. What do we think is going to happen? And you'll get people that go, "There's no wind out there now, but don't worry, it's going to come, and it's going to come from here. It might be coming in from the pier at the moment at 1 or 2 knots, but actually it's a good sunny day. It's going to come in. The sea breeze can kick in. It has done all week this week. Generally, you can set your clock to it, and with the right time of day, it's worth sitting around and waiting and getting that right."
How many race officers do you currently have at the moment as a club?
How many have we got? Not, you know, not enough. Yeah, it's good answer. That's good. We don't have enough. There are gaps. If you look on the calendar, which we often do, there are gaps.
I mean, how many would you normally have as a club this size?
Again, it's all down to people volunteering. The whole system is run, on volunteers, running the ribs, running the safety boats. It's all done on volunteers. We do need your help, and generally speaking, it seems to be the same old faces coming in to do it. So, if you want to come and learn it, the best thing to do is come out and be an assistant or volunteer. If there are 2 people already doing it, say, "Do you want a hand?" I can guarantee you they will say yes. I can guarantee it, and go and pull some flags up. When you're on the committee boat and you're watching the racing going on, 1, you're learning what this is all about and how this actually happens. 2, you're involved in the racing. You can see what happens in the water. You can see the wind shifts. You can't see them sitting on the balcony here. You can see what's going on, and you will learn as a sailor more about what's going on. So the best thing to do is just stick your hand up and come try it. Even if you're a novice assistant, just say, "Look, volunteer, put your name down and come out and have a go."
You're better having at least 3 or 4 people at least.
Yeah, we asked for a race officer, assistant race officer, and normally what Bevel does, she'll go and fully apprentice to coming out and giving her a hand.
Very nicely.
Normally with a glass of wine or something like that. So it's come and help. There'll always be room for you to come on the committee boat. If you've never done it before and you want to come try it, you want to come and learn. It's really good. I mean, even if you're an experienced sailor, I had Lawrence Crispin, laser world champion, pretty handy guy on a boat. Says, "Do you know what? I'm not clear about all this. Come out with it." And he came out, spent the day with us, and he was the 3rd man on the boat. And I just sort of talked him through it all. I said, "Okay, this all starts to make sense now." It's amazing. You'd think he would know it, wouldn't you? But don't always know it. The best sailors don't always know it. Alan Barrell doesn't know how to race officer and don't do it because he just doesn't want to. He's seen lots of people who doesn't want to do it himself. But actually, if you came out and tried to do it, you'll find it's not actually. It's not. Oh, great plaster, beautiful. So yeah, do please come and volunteer, and come and try, come and help. I think, yeah, as I said, the race officer's best friend. You know, use it because it will get you out of all sorts of trouble and it will help you. On that, I think a very, very quick run through, albeit same as 2.5 hours, because it is a big subject. It is a big topic, and there are lots and lots and lots of things to it. But basically, that's what it's about. And it's don't worry about the course. Is the big thing. Get that windward right, get the leeward right. The rest does all fall into place. Yeah. The sailors know where they're going. They know what course they've got to do. All we've got to do is make sure that the boys are in the decent direction. Any more questions?
Thank you.
Andrew.
Thank you, Howard. I like that. Your presentation is very good, thank you. I might need instruction on how to do committee votes.
Yeah.
Again, the anchoring system is need to know what to do, how to access it, and so on.
Sure, you do. Yeah, you can't just jump in and go and move it. It is very simple, but you do need to be shown it. And again, if you're doing the race officer duty and your assistant comes on and says, oh, I've never moved it either, they can ask. John Caston's around most weekends, or if you called him in the week and said, John, will you come out and move the committee vote for me? He'll happily come and do it. Or call one of the committee, yeah, and say, I'm going to need some help with the committee vote. Can you be somebody about? Generally speaking, you know, if I'm stand up and say, we'll rig the boat, and I'm going to that off, and he puts me on the committee boat, we'll move it, we'll anchor it, and then I'll jump back on and we'll carry on sailing. So there's plenty of people that will be able to help you. Don't be frightened by it. It is really simple to do. Once you know how to do it, try anything. Once you know and you've done it a few times, it is easy. But there are a few things you do need to know, otherwise you can cause damage. Like the water stop clock's got to be open, and obviously close at the end of the day, and lifting the leg at the end with the races. You've got all the rest to do it, but there's people about that will help you. Yeah. Yeah, we can do. It's just it's just getting people back out again. Or the other thing is we could perhaps bring it back in, and if there's a bad tide day, we perhaps bring it in, put it alongside the jetty, sit it on the mud, and we can show you how to do it. And or in the evening we can do that, certainly. Yeah, go and chug it around the bay a bit. Or come and bring it back from the option. I'm sure Adrian would be happy with the company. Any other questions while we're here?
Go back to the cadets, Howard.
Yeah.
So there we put another windward boy definitely in for the cadets.
Yeah. So again, looking at the sailing instructions, you've got that A1 mark, the small dumpy inflatable, but again, and what we'll try and do is we'll get the cadet parents and Andres and Nick to try and identify. Actually, guys, you've got about 6 or 7 cadet bases out. You are going to need to put that out, and then we can definitely do it, because we don't always know, are the cadets out there or are they just laser sailors? So we don't always know. They should be flying a streamer. It's not always easy to see, and yeah, and they have a little tape that's the ribbon. That's it. That's the word I was looking for. Flying from a shroud or from the top of the mast, there's no shroud.
So any race where you see even a single checkered ribbon, that's so.
No, not necessarily. If you've just got one cadet out there, putting the A1 mark out is not necessarily required. It's again, it's at your discretion. You know, it's the same with if you've only got 2 hurricanes sailing. Don't bother with the D1 mark. You know, don't bother with this lower they can come around here quite safely enough. But you just got to make sure that it's identified and you're on your passport.
I think it depends on the conditions as well, because if a relatively short course is set up for everyone, then it's a great fun for the cadets just to do the same.
Yeah.
You did that with lots of times.
Yeah.
I'll try and win every trophy. I'll go for the cadets as well.
So yeah, it's at your discretion.
I mean,
All of this.
what is the problem with the cadets is there is a daunting big course, and they get lost and they are lost and there is no one around and just go.
Yeah.
It's an awful feeling.
Yeah, what you don't want to send them on an upwind course that's going from down here right about the 15, and there's only about 2 knots of breeze because it just takes them all day, and they may do one lap. Most of them will probably just get off the board and come in. But if you went from here to number 8 and then a nice tight short course, or gave them that shorter windward mark, then they'll do maybe 2 laps or 3 laps whilst everybody else is doing a long one, and it just gives them an opportunity to get a decent race in rather than just flogging around one big lap and getting bored with it, you know.
So, but maybe the onus should be on the cadets to radio the race officer if there's a group of them, to let the race officer know that they're coming out to.
Yeah, as I said earlier, if you know, we'll try and get the parents and members to identify that actually, yeah, you have got a decent group, or you haven't got really anybody coming out this week, so don't worry about the cadet course. Or there's only.
We can on the WhatsApp we can actually encourage the parents actively to inform us, and then we can pass it on.
That's it. And then we'll soon work it out. I think you might decide that actually the cadets are out on Sunday, they won't bother doing Saturday, and they'll all try and go out on the Sunday as we do with the Hurricanes. It seems to work quite well. So you perhaps pick a day. The sprints generally go out on the Saturday, and there's less of them on a Sunday. So they try.
There are so many cadets. I think they won't commit to one day. I think they come when they can. Depends on.
Yeah, there's different all sorts of things.
I think it's unlikely that they could pick a day, but we'll see.
But it's another opportunity they can do. But yeah.
Lovely point about courses as well. Make sure you know what course you go for with the cadet sessions going on.
Yeah. So see what often happens is Andras and Nick will perhaps do some training, and they will always come and talk to the race officer. Where do you think you're going to be? And you can say, well, I'm going to be here, and I'll probably go out this way. And again, you always go around to the left, you're going that way. So they can set themselves up down here and be pretty much out of the way.
So we like to be around 3 or even inshore, and then we often do skill training, which only requires a small area. But it would be nice to have a dedicated area for cadets. And I think, but sometimes the wind is on a way that the race officer wants to use 3, and then
yeah, that's right. The race officer wants to come to use 3.
So because of the moving boats, we are a bit let down.
So
we generally move between 3 or between 3 and 4 or even short of 3.
Yeah. So they'll try and keep out of the way, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they can come out and the cadets want to come out and committee boat and learn how to do it. Absolutely, yeah, why not? They can come and do that.
A similar question actually.
I think we should organise it actually.
Whether we will, how we'll know there's a cruiser start. Are we likely to be told to do that?
Yes, I would think so. The ones you'd probably like to do are the long distance ones, aren't they, Ray?
Yeah, they're more likely to be the shoreline or the outlet.
Right, okay.
It's not going to be, if the course is here, then will be too tight.
Yeah. You'll notice that actually on point 7 where we've got the flags, I've put a little note with the cruisers. The trophy races, the cruiser start, or the cruiser equals start time plus 3 minutes. Yeah, so this is where you've got a general, everybody's going under the R flag, what's it? The red and white, so this one. So everybody's going under that flag. The whole lot will start. The cruisers will start under their flag, the whiskey flag, 3 minutes after. Okay, that's just so that otherwise, if you've got 4 28-foot cruisers with big masts sitting on the start line, it's going to create havoc and a lot of wind shadow. So they'll start 3 minutes.
Similar to a hurricane.
Similar to a hurricane. Yeah. Or a sand off on a terror. And also the general handicap, all boats start under R, but the Yankovic Trophy and Benfleet Shield, I've got the Windward Lure equals start plus 30 minutes. Okay, so they start 30 minutes behind the rest of the fleet. This is something that Bessim RFT put into place for a Yankovic Trophy about 3 or 4 years ago. And he said, I want to start them after us. And actually, I was saying a standoffer with Alex and Steve alongside us, and we got to the Windward Mark at the same time the Hurricanes did. Had they gone earlier, they'd be walking their boats around the buoy in Benfleet Creek. So there wasn't any water in there because they got there so quick. So by holding the fast boats back, actually, we've got time to get up there. Now, I know we've had this discussion, oh, will they get different winds or different advantages? The wind might pick up as they're going, yeah, well, okay. So be it. It's generally speaking going to be fairly even. We've also had it where they've all sat parks and the wind's building behind us and we've all caught them up. So, and the Andler Trophy, it means that we're all crossing the shipping lanes at about the same sort of time. We haven't got spread of boats running backwards and forwards. We try and just move. By the time a laser or a Sandoffer or whatever has got to the low way where they turn left and go across, the Hurricanes have now caught up and are coming up around at the same time. So we're all crossing. For safety's sake and ease of ribs to use, it's easier for us to do.
Something like missing a mark or a mark trips.
Yeah. It does happen.
Yeah, it does.
There is you can put a rib. So if you lose anchor goes and you can anchor a rib there, and there is a flank and you flying off the top what it is. No, I think it might be actually the Worcester flag. It might be that one. I'm not sure. It might be. I'm not sure. I'll find out. But it rarely happens, to be honest. But if it does happen, you can anchor a rib. They put a flag on the shows and they'll see the new or replacement mark as it would. You can. Yeah, I mean, again, you can change a course. So battery level. Oh, dropped it. You can change a course halfway through a race. If a wind changes, I've done it with the Sandhoppers, and again, you fly the C flag, which is the same as we said, the contender flags, blue, white, red, white, blue stripes. Oh, for Dutch flag, yeah. You can fly that, and that's a change of course with the number of the mark on it. You make a sound signal as they go across the start line, and if they were going to 8 and they're now going to go to 7 because the wind's changed, you can do that. It's not very easy to do, and I would recommend doing it with 3 fleets going around, but it's doable. But you can change the course. Cool. Well, I hope you found it of interest, and I know it's a long session, but if there's anything you need or would want a copy of this, please shout, but please do come out and have a go. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.